Greetings, Father Joe here, friendly neighborhood pastor, coming to you from St. Patrick's Church in lovely Highland Mills, New York. Today we are celebrating the feast of St. Lawrence, Deacon, and Martyr. We seem to have a lot of suffering this week. We have Edith Stein yesterday, we've got St. Lawrence, tomorrow we've got St. Clare, and on Friday, I can't remember who they are, but we have two martyrs on Friday. So last week we kind of focused on humility and obedience. And so this week I just keep coming back to this idea of sacrifice, or how we deal with suffering. And in our first reading today from St. Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, St. Paul says, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. And this is just so critical for our lives, our individual lives, and for our church. We tend to reach out to God when we need something, and God gives us grace, but then what do we do with that grace? And I want to make sure we phrase it that way. God doesn't wait for us to produce fruit to give us the grace. He gives us grace, but if we don't use it, then we're going to lose it. St. Paul says, whoever sows sparingly will reap sparingly. God has given us so many gifts, but if we don't sow them, and sowing here, because Jesus in the gospel is going to speak about unless a seed falls to the ground and dies, it doesn't produce much fruit. So we are called to sacrifice. And if we don't sacrifice, then we're not going to reap the benefits. I do think that it is one of the problems with the church, and probably true of most Christian churches at this point. We don't sacrifice. We want to avoid suffering, and as a result of that, sacrifice is just non-existent. One of the adages, old-time adages, is the blood of the martyrs are the seeds of the church. And if we are not willing to make sacrifices, and they don't have to be huge, small sacrifices, stop into the church during the day and just say a couple of prayers. I just like that one because couple of people have thanked me for opening up the church. If I make sacrifices, then I will reap bountifully the grace of those sacrifices. I learned this first, well, maybe not first, but I applied it in my life with tithing. I brought a group into my church to give us education on tithing. And one of the things they said is we don't offer our money as a sacrificial offering to God. And as a result, we don't have any money. And so I began to tithe. And I don't understand this entirely, probably because I was tithing. I actually had to look at my finances. But I have more money now than I did before I started tithing. I always have money left over at the end of the month. And before I started tithing, my life was out of control. And if my life is out of control, I cannot give it to Jesus. If my finances are out of control, I cannot give them to Jesus. If my will is out of control, I cannot give it to Jesus. So why do we sacrifice? So that we can give it to Jesus, and our lives will be in control, and then we will have more to give Jesus or to give other people. So again, theme this week, sacrifice. If I sow sparingly, I will reap sparingly. If I sow bountifully, I will reap bountifully. God bless you.